What up, Marsh Pod? I think we got a good one in store. At least one I think people will tend to like to talk about. We are coming up with round 2 updated for the rosters having been completed. Pointless power rankings. Second part, some movers, some shakers, very exciting stuff. And of course, as we all know, there's going to be all these are going to be so simply correct that it's indisputable that this would not be the top 10 teams. We'll get to it real quick. Good All-Star weekend. If you are into that, I guess. I'm not. I know Rick talked about it on his pod. I think he's right that putting G League guys into the slam dunk contest would, in theory, make NBA guys want to do it. But frankly, I don't care that Mac McClung is dunking. This is All-Star weekend. This isn't all G League guy that can't make a 15-man roster but can dunk weekend. This isn't the Julius Randle shoots 34%, so let's put him in the three-point contest weekend. This isn't let's see the three Antetokounmpo brothers do a skills challenge and the rookies try to make shots that none of them can make weekend. All-Star weekend should be for the best of the best. The home run derby, you never have elite home run hitters not involved in the home run derby. Like, you don't have D. Gordon in the home run derby. Julius Randle shouldn't be in the three-point contest. No offense to Mac McClung, but he shouldn't be in the slam dunk contest. The dunks are great, but I would much rather see dudes like Ja Morant, like Jason Tatum, like Jaylen Brown, high flyers that can dunk on people doing it. There's a reason that the 80s and 90s was peak time for all-star basketball in the NBA. The jerseys suck. The game is brutal. I don't remember the last All-Star game I've ever watched, but when it ends up at, 184 to 175, you can count me out. There's no point to it. Just give the guys the full weekend off and call it a day, because there's really no other point to it. But anyway, on to more pressing things. Part 2, pointless power rankings. Quick refresher for those of us who weren't here a month ago with the inaugural rankings. We had in reverse order Best Coast Ballers at 10, Lone Star Basketball at 9, The Originators at 8, Run DMV at 7, Southeast Select at 6, Showtime at number 5, Yacht Club at number 4, Lakeshore Drive at number 3, Gotham 5 at number 2, and Bay Area Breakers came in at number 1. We had just finished off the preseason tournaments. Bay Area at 5, they took the top spot because of it. Now, we've got the rosters having been completed, which means we've got an opportunity to shift these rankings around a little bit. So, we're going to start same spot. We're going to start at number 10. There's some new players in here. There's some people that dropped off, and there's a team that just barely missed getting on there again. We'll get to them at the end. So, 10th, down from number 7 is going to be Run DMV. My belief in their coach is the only reason that they are still in the top 10 in my opinion. They have a ton of shooting. Few teams are going to be able to match that shot for shot, but they don't have at this point that star that you can point to. But Coach Murray did it last year. He developed Cooper King across to be the best player in SimWorld Hoops if you're not talking to Rick Blaze. He put a roster together that was extremely competitive up until the upset in the tournament. I have faith in that. So he's 10. It's down from 3 because I think some other teams might have a little bit more high-end talent at the top that's going to put them ahead of them, Run DMV right now. That's why they fall from 7 to 10, but they're still a top 10 team in the league so long as Coach Murray's in there. Number 9, new to the rankings, Indy Stripes. I love Reza Red as the top guy on that team. I think that he's raw, so I think it's going to be very difficult early on, or potentially difficult early on. The big man position is one that once you get to the higher levels, there's more skill set involved in it. But at this level, 15 to 17-year-olds, it's a lot of just who's physically powering. And Reza Red at 15 years old is very physically overpowering considering his age. That being said, I'm curious what Benari James, Jay Less, and Johan Novajovic look like, because they are versatile offensively. But I'm very concerned not just on those three, but as a team, what their perimeter defense is going to look like, which means it's a big responsibility on Resurrect to have to lock down a paint if they aren't able to get stops, aren't able to deter drives. Offensively, I'm not too concerned about Indy Stripes. Defensively is why they were not in the original top 10, and it's why they're at number 9, but I still like the way this offense has looked. Number 8, up one spot, is Jace Miguez in Lone Star basketball, and that's it for Lone Star, and it's, spoiler alert, the same reason that the team ahead of them is where they are, because Jace Miguez is such an offensive dynamo that they should be able to stay afloat against most teams. The roster filled out, there's not a ton of depth. There's not a lot of other guys at this point in time that you look to and say, that's a guy that I can guarantee late in an offensive game is going to give me the production I need, but I know I'm going to get that out of Jace Miguez, and that's why they're number 8. Number 7, new to the top 10, SimWorld Europe. We're finally getting some international love in the Pointless Power rankings. Henrik Vekic is because of that. He very well could be, and we've seen this talked about a little bit earlier today. We're recording this on Monday the 20th. Vekic might be that number 1 guy in SimWorld Hoops. It's a big leap to get there because there's a lot of talent ahead of him. But Vekic has the makings, and especially at 6'10", with his versatility, his, I think, underappreciated, underrated athleticism, he's good enough to be in that situation and carrying a team to success. So they're at number 7. Number 6, down 3 spots from number 3, is the Lakeshore Drive. They still have Harvell, they still have Nations, but I'm not, as the roster filled out, I'm not quite convinced that the rest of the roster is deserving of a top 3 spot. And I think as the glean of their dynamic offensive backcourt has worn off from the really good preseason run that they had, the flaws in that roster are starting to make a little bit more sense, or at least be more obvious. And so for that reason, they're dropping down to 6th. Coming in 5th, moving up a spot, is Southeast Select. They were 6th before. Trey Turner, he's still the top guy on this group. I like the addition of Gabe Pope and D. Jackson. I think that helps with their offensive creation depth. I don't think they had a lot of that last year. It was a lot of reliance on Trey Turner. But all 3 of those guys are 6'4" and under. So there could be situations where they're getting beat by longer teams. Someone like we will talk about in a couple spots here. That's kind of the detraction that I have for Southeast Select. I'm really believing them over the top. None of these teams, I think, in the 10 through 5 range, I think are perfectly built products. I think that's why they're in this range. You could probably move them around in any which way and I wouldn't have too many faults with it. The top 4, I think we get to some teams that are really well developed, really well put together, not a lot of holes. Southeast Select, their one hole is just their size. Number 4, Showtime Basketball, moving up a single spot. The high-end talent matters, and we've continued to see a lot of good success from and depth from this group in terms of that high-end talent. I like what they can put together on the court. I think they've got the type of skill set that can be relied upon, and they've solidified since a bit of a bumpy mid-season or mid-off-season, if you will, where there was a lot of this not really knowing what's going on, a lot of these roster moves. The roster's finalized. You can look at it. This is a complete picture, and I still like what Showtime brings to the floor. Originators at number 3. They move up 5 spots from number 8. And a big part of that is the addition of Viktoras Ilgauskas. They needed some type of size. They have DJ Wagner, who's proven that he can be capable of being that number 1 guy in the league, but they didn't have any size. Ilgauskas addresses that. It's a great addition, in my opinion, that answered the one hole that we saw in that roster. I think that's why they deserve to be up here at number 3. At number 2, staying where they were, is going to be Gotham 5. And the simple reason that I like Gotham 5 here is their range. You look at this roster, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 guys that sit at 6'8" and above, which means they can put out some rangy dudes that are going to be able to provide a lot of persistent defense both on the inside and the outside. You've got Mugen Williams at 6'11", Mackenzie Mbako at 6'9", Hakeem Matthews at 6'8", and Aaron Lovejoy at 6'11". That's a lot of range, and you look at that in contrast to somebody like Southeast Select, where Southeast Select has 2 players, three, Keandre Baldridge, Kadarius Stack, and Manasseh Warnick at 6'10". but they're not quite as versatile of defenders, or they don't bring quite as many of the skill sets that you see from the group with Gotham 5, where, Mackenzie Mbako at 6'9", great perimeter defender, also a great switchable interior defender. Mugen Williams, very athletic, not just a post defender. Aaron Lovejoy, who's got a lot of offensive creation ability from the post, as well as being a good post defender. So a little bit more athletic than you look at the bigger guys on somebody like Southeast Select. And then, you got Kyan Anthony, you got Manjera Williams. I think those are great backcourt combinations. Syer Matthews and Akeem Matthews, the two sets of cousins. So there's just so much depth with Gotham 5, so much rangy depth. There's just not a spot where, in my opinion, you look at that roster and say, this is where we're going to beat Gotham 5. They don't have that obvious spot. And then number 1, remaining where they were, Bay Area Breakers. Roster hasn't changed much, aside from the addition of Joey Voorhees, which obviously brought a lot of controversy, but it addressed the one weakness that they previously had, which was a complete lack of big man depth, right? After Trey Hyman, the only other player coming in at 6'8" or above was Lawrence Shields at 6'9". Now you add Joey Voorhees. He's a good perimeter defender. He's a good post defender, extremely athletic. He's got that Red 15-year-old. We're not really sure what he's going to look like, but damn it if it's going to be interesting to find out. It's a very deep team with a lot of the same opportunities of Gotham 5. Not a lot of holes, not a lot of weaknesses, not a lot of spots where you look at it and say, that's how we're going to beat them. And that's why they won so much when they did over the offseason. So that means we had 2 teams that got bumped out, and then 1 team that just missed it. To me, Bad Boys is the team that doesn't get back into the top 10 because there's just too much chaos still surrounding that team for me to feel comfortable with. It's kind of like Chernobyl. You could probably go back there if you really wanted to, but it's just so chaotic, I'm not even going to bother. And then the two teams that we lose out, Best Coast Ballers, going from 10th to off completely. They're an athletic team, but I'm really worried about any type of offensive production outside of Mikey Williams and Lace Darius Outlaw. Lene Newman's a good big, but he's really their only guy at 6'8" that you can rely on. Don't love that. And then Yacht Club gets bumped out. They go from 4 to completely off. I don't think it's all because of the loss of Khalil Erickson, but it's part of it because I'm just not sure where the defense is going to come from Yacht Club. They don't have a guy on that roster that you look at and say, that's a guy that we can throw on a Lace Darius Outlaw. We can throw on a Trey Turner. We can put him on Jace Maguez, and he's going to get shut down. Guy doesn't exist for Yacht Club, and in a league that we're seeing a lot of guards being very capable on ball, that's going to be an issue for you. That's the Pointless Power Rankings Part 2. We are just about a week and a half away from the season, so I can't wait to figure out how right and wrong these are, but more than anything, I'm just going to be happy that we can finally talk about basketball and not hypotheticals and not off-courts and not all-star games. We just need hoops. All right, we'll see you Thursday.